Hello, and welcome to a new episode of New Ways of Being. And in this episode, I am going to talk pretty much ad lib. I do have a very short outline here, but I'm going to talk about just an update on several big things that I have had going on, uh, going back a year or so, and some observations. So let me jump into it. I'd like to keep this short, reasonably short, if I can, because some of this has touched in several other recent episodes. So, but this is different than those. Okay, number one, I want to bring up something that I have completely ignored for many months, going on a year, and that is the channeling that I had done before of the Council of Highly Evolved Beings. And two things happened with the decision to create the book to help promote consciousness, which is very much what the Council of Highly Evolved Beings talked about, because they emphasize that humanity must raise its consciousness beyond the level that it's at currently, because the current level promotes wars and all kinds of issues, and it does not solve problems. It cannot solve problems in total disunity, but we can solve big problems once we come into greater unity. So and in the process of doing the channeling that I did, I realized that I was not completely comfortable with the channeling. Um, and I think in order for that to be really totally effective, I needed to kind of shift to a different level. I was wanting to be a communication channel and let the council speak through me. But um, really, to be most effective, I would need to let the council, or at least the speaker of the council, to really totally merge into me. And I believe I was reluctant to do that. That was a step beyond what I chose to do. And what will happen in the long run, I don't know, but I don't have any immediate plans to do anything with that council immediately, because my focus continues to be on completing the creation of the book that I undertook last year, and I'm still bringing it to completion right now. Um, and and by the way, so the book, from the beginning, I called it "We Can Change the World," and we can do that by raising our consciousness. Um, but beyond that, I really want to get heavily into advocacy, advocating consciousness and conscious evolution. And the world needs more people speaking up on that right now. There are a number of people who are doing that, but many more are needed. And uh, and the goal of that is to really, ideally, to bring it to the attention of large numbers of people. Right now, it's not getting that attention. There are many people who are involved in raising consciousness in many different ways and who are involved in unity and peace and even to a limited extent conscious evolution. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But so I have been totally focused on the book. It is progressing. Let me give you a quick status. I interviewed, uh, I, what I did was I connected with 21 notable people in the field of raising consciousness and asked them to participate in this book project. And there were 21 total people who agreed to. I think that's actually counting Lynn McTaggart, and I hope she still participates, but she agreed only conditionally to participate when I have a publisher. And am totally pursuing publishing the book, but I do not yet have a committed publisher. So that's a very big activity. I found that developing a good book proposal and and reaching out to potential agents or to potential publishers um, was a very big part of the effort. It was larger than I expected it to be. And I did go through multiple iterations of the book proposal, but you have to be able to deliver something very substantial to get anyone interested. So that was a big part of my time. And and at this point, I'm still very confident that the book will, that I will find a publisher and the book will get published. I kind of gave up on finding an agent because this is a bit different type of book. And so, but at any rate, out of those 21 people, um, or 20 people, uh, let's see, 16, I interviewed 16 people, and the other four contributed short essays. And so for those interviews, I have been doing substantial editing to turn those into chapters for the book. Um, and I found that editing effort has been much bigger than I had originally anticipated because they, uh, in the flow of a conversation in an interview, you can most people can like follow my interviews and understand pretty much what's being talked about and what's being said. But when you turn that into a transcript and begin to read it, then you realize there are lots of things that are left unsaid in a conversation. There are a lot of starts and stops. People very often will start to say one thing and then see that that doesn't quite go where they want to go. They'll stop mid-sentence and they'll start a new sentence um, somewhat differently. And then um, transcripts just are not very clear and understandable. So I am doing substantial editing to to turn the transcript into something that is very readable, very understandable, clear, and enjoyable, interesting reading. And um, and the result, I think, is very good. I mean, everyone so far has been very pleased. I've got three more, the last three interviews to edit yet, but all of those were, I did the editing and I sent it to the person, had them review it. All of them have been very happy about how well it turned out. And I think it is great reading. reading a conversation like that is a bit different, but I see it as being somewhat like storytelling. The person uh, being interviewed is telling their story and telling what they've learned. And in the process of the conversation, I have been doing the same. It is a conversation, and it is storytelling, and I find it to be very interesting, and with the help of a lot of editing, it's very um, enjoyable and educational at the same time. So the book has been very demanding. It's nearing the end of the development effort. I eh, did suggest a different name instead of "We Can Change the World." I'm now calling it "Called to Something Greater," because that tells more about the what or the why. We many people in the world are being called to something greater, and what the book is talking about is how we can. It gets into a lot of the how we can um, help, how we can change, raise our consciousness, change our life as a result, and how we can change the world as more and more people do that. But in the process, we also are being called to something greater, being called to make a difference in the world, help change the world, and being called to change our own lives are very important things. And that gives us hope, in a world that is pretty disturbing to lots of people nowadays. We see how bad the world is, how negative it is, how inequitable, how destructive, wars, uh, killings, just many things that are not very desirable in the world. And and we can also see that the world is in decline. Systems are falling apart because they are not designed for a world of 8 billion people who must live and cooperate and create the world together. We can't have a few authoritative dictators running the world when every one of those is terrible at running the world. They are self-interested and power hungry, and that's not what the world needs. We need something very different in the world. We need a different human consciousness, and I've talked about that. So I'm not going to dwell on that, but let me go on. So the status of the book is nearing completion. The proposed name right now, and a publisher could suggest something else, but the proposed name is Called to Something Greater. In the process of doing this, I have been called to something greater, and I see that many people are being called to something greater today. And, it's not just a handful of people. There are, thousands and millions of people who see that the world has to change in a big way. Um, so the book is still underway, and I'm still actively pursuing publishers, and very optimistic that that's going to happen. And that's going to continue to be my long-term focus, because once the book is published, I'm going to be doing a lot of promotion, and that is very closely tied to promoting consciousness, higher consciousness and conscious evolution um, at the same time. I mean, they go hand in hand, and the world needs the book, and the world needs advocates. All right, now I would like to comment now. One observation that's really come through loud and clear to me is that the world right now has become we've become more interconnected with the internet than ever. But because of the nature of the technology, people being totally locked into checking their phone, and far too many people do it continuously all day long, not just once in a while. I rarely look at my phone, um, but I check occasionally, at least probably once an hour. But what has happened as a result is that people have become more isolated. When your nose is in a phone, you are isolated from having decent conversations with people around you. You are not being concerned at all about, people used to be uh, those people who are caring and concerned about themselves and the world. It's all the importance of being kind and the importance of goodness in the world and the importance of being a good person in the general sense. And I still believe I'm an optimist. I believe people are in their nature are good-hearted people. Uh, it doesn't take too much thinking to realize that the opposite of that, bad-natured people like the American president today, he demonstrates the worst of people in the world. And you could see as a result of that, it is not good. It is totally destructive. And those people who say, well, it's good to have a powerful president, well, only to a certain extent, because if they're doing it by bullying instead of getting people to work together, or they're doing it by war, attacking other countries outright, that's destructive in many different ways. And the world currently is on the downward decline. But I would say if you look at how that we've actually become more isolated, I certainly have been looking at it in myself, and I'm realizing that um, I and about 6 months ago, I particularly reached a point I was realizing I was very busy all the time doing what I needed to do, and I was communicating, reaching out to certain groups of people, and particularly the contributors in the book, and but otherwise, I, I am not interacting with people as much as I would like to be, as much as I used to. Part of that was when I retired as well. So I don't have coworkers per se. I'm doing this book project on my own, but um, community is important. If you really stop and think about it, if you had community to give you support, and people who you might turn to um, when maybe you don't even you're feeling so depressed or bad about life that you don't even want to go to a friend. You need some other kind of third party person to turn to. The world needs more community in general going forward. And so we need to find more ways of making that happen. Um, so I urge you to think about that and begin to think what you might do in terms of having more community. So I've started looking at community in the space of consciousness and uh, you know um, unity and peace and those kinds of things. And there are a lot of communities out there that many people probably would not be aware of. There are a lot of communities. And in the process of working on this book, I put together an appendix that I haven't done a recent count, but I know it's more than 50 organizations that are potential communities for people to uh, to join and to participate in what those communities are doing. There, most are organizations, but there are some that there are actual communities that exist in the world uh, in terms of either living spaces, like a town or like a um, well, even churches have a sense of community. Many of them do, and so that's a possibility. One of the groups that I've discovered that I really did not even know much about before. I had heard of it, but is it's called the Baha'i Faith, and one of the people that I interviewed, Bob Atkinson, he I don't know if he's an active member of the Baha'i Faith, but or a local community, but he might be. I'm not sure. But what's great about that is they're really not too much of a faith in the traditional sense. They don't have, they had a founder, but not what I would call a, a prophet like many religions have had. Um, but they are based on living principles. And that's exactly what the world needs right now. We need principles that promote unity and collaboration and working together and raising consciousness together. Um, so, that's one possibility, but there are many, many others. I decided 6 months ago or so to join one group that's called Imaginal Souls, and that group is organized and led by Julie Kroll. And Dr. Julie Kroll um, is someone who was a therapist, and she's become uh, a leader in consciousness. Um, and Jude Currivan is another one. She founded a group called Whole World View, and I belong to that, although I'm not active in that yet, but I want to get more so. Imaginal Souls is a small group, and we meet weekly, and we promote our greater coherence in consciousness. And I love it. It's an amazing group. Uh, but there are many, many others available. And if you're interested and you don't want to wait until the book comes out, um, because it will be an appendix of that book, there are many. And I would certainly recommend Humanities Team it's a free organization you can join. Um, and they do great things and they have incredible educational information available in the form of courses um, that you would probably find to be very enlightening and helpful. Um, but there's Unity Earth that you can sign up for and be on their mailing list, and you can attend their organizations. Most of these organizations have, um, you know, a lot of them have in-person type of activities and events, but also have most of those events are you're able to participate in some way remotely by Zoom or some other technology. But there are some that I'm particularly interested in checking out a bit more than I have yet. Um, a Global Coherence Pulse is one that promotes global coherence initiatives. Um, just didn't know what my dog was doing there. There's one called Global Peace Tribe, and I know that's led by let's see, Scott, I've forgotten his last name now. Um, but there's one called the Hollow Movement that might be a great one for me. There is another one called um, Sign Network, SINE Network. That stands for Synergized Impact Network Exchange. And there's many, many more. There's just a lot. So I would encourage you to, begin to scout those out. And if you know, I always in my episode notes give my email address. But if people start emailing me and asking for the list, I will provide it. Um, I've not made it available, but I could easily make it available on my website. So, all right, let me go on. Now, I've also noticed uh, beyond realizing that there are a lot of organizations that are very actively doing things that I had no real idea were out there. There also are a lot of nonprofit organizations, and I've only included a few of those. Um, well, actually, many of these are nonprofit organizations now that I think about it. Unity Earth is, Pathways to Peace is, um, the Source of Synergy Foundation. But there are many others that are very specialized in different ways. So, but I also then came to notice that there is a strong sense of pull, evolutionary pull that is running through those organizations. And that's another thing, if you feel yourself being pulled to um, help make a difference in some way, don't just keep ignoring that. Find a way to, explore into that feeling. And, um, it might mean forming a community of some type in your area that does some particular thing, helps the world in some way. Um, Humanities team right now, along with the Source of Synergy Foundation, they're very actively pushing to try to get the United Nations to go an extra step beyond what they've done and declare some like a day. There's a peace day in the world, but to have a oneness day, for example, and help it become more and more established as something that is important in the world and recognized, and that, you know, even schools should recognize and open their doors to. So I would really recognize and urge you to be open to that. A lot of people are being called to help support world unity and peace in some way. Um, some are particularly interested in, knowing that uh, in the area of spiritual awakening, love is considered very, very important. And um, love is important in the world. We can't have unity without a certain kind of universal love. So, but uh, th- there's also, a growing sense, many more and more people. I recognize that I was being called to participate in the evolution of consciousness. Uh, I knew about the ideas around it, but up until at some point last year, or just, I guess, about a year and a half ago, I realized I was being called to participate in the evolution of consciousness. And I can do that in many ways. One way is the book I'm working on. Another way is to beyond that, to become an advocate and try to get myself interviewed and to talk about consciousness and evolution as much as I can. But just to participate in raising consciousness. And then another area of that I've learned is very much a part of it is understanding that the universe operates on the principles of coherence and harmonic resonance. And now scientists are, and unified physicists understand that that's the nature of the universe. It's based on coherence and resonance. So there's a lot of ways that um, the call to evolution is happening. So pay attention to that. I I I will provide more information as I go forward. And I did a recent episode that talked about the scientific discoveries. Actually, I've done a bunch of different episodes that talk about it. But one of the things that I've really come to realize is, I realized that consciousness is inherent in the universe, evolution is inherent in the nature of the universe, and unity is inherent. And those are the 3 points that the unified physicists, at least some of them, emphasize. And Jude Curvin emphasized those to me, and I realized how important that they are. But I've also discovered through people like Marshall Lefferts and Grant Story those are my two most recent people that I've interviewed, and I've published their interviews. Um, they talk about that everything is relational. You know, a lot of people have heard the notion everything is energy in the universe. Well, now unified physicists know, and biologists and others have come to realize it's everything in the universe is relational. Everything relates to everything else in the universe at some level, and it certainly relates to the whole of the universe. And if you hear the universe described as holographic or hologrammic, um, that's what that's about. It's every everything, no matter how big or small in the universe, is connected to the whole, and the whole is in everything or connected through. It's and that it's also everything is information. And they've learned that it's actually information, not in terms of data, but in terms of harmonic frequencies um, and specific relationships. Those represent information, and also geometric forms are represented throughout the universe, and fractals. You may have heard of those. Um, the fact that everything is relational and informational is a very significant to help us understand the nature of the universe. So stay tuned. I will be sharing more and more about that. And so that's really about all that I want to cover for today. I will end by saying um, I believe this totally, we are all being called to something greater. We are being called to raise our consciousness to unity consciousness and not just believing that in separation, now that we know that the universe at a fundamental level is unified, and so we've been operating from a consciousness that ignores that. you know Many people, spiritual masters, knew that it was true, and understood the unity, but scientists certainly did not until just very recently, and not all scientists know about it yet. But we are called to something greater, and that changes our whole perspective on life. When you know that you are called to something greater, and the world, all humans are called to something greater, that eventually people will wake up to being called. And what's calling us? It's the whole of the universe, the whole the whole unified holographic universe, knows that in order to evolve, it, it only evolves holistically as a whole. And so, because humanity have been holding themselves as an exception, or out of ignorance, um, and have been resisting participating in holistic evolution because they don't know. And so right now, as I said, we're very isolated, but we can change that. We will change that. And so be thinking about that. Let yourself be called to something greater. I mean, isn't that a lot more exciting than being struggling to survive and to thrive? A lot of people, if not most, feel that way at this time. In my lifetime, there has been a dramatic shift and a decline in consciousness, and and a decline in civility of the world. At least, when the United Nations was formed, many people were optimistic that the world would begin to work much more actively to prevent a war like that from ever happening again. Well, we've had steady wars all around the world. We've not had a World War III yet, but we have stupid leaders who are risking it and threatening it even out of sheer stupidity. And we can change that. Let yourself be called to something greater. Think about that. And thank you for listening. You have a great day and a great life.